I think the questioning has assumed that China is not interested in entering into any arms control framework given its current arsenal. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's an accurate assessment?
It certainly has been up to this point, Senator Shaheen, and I do think it will depend on that presidential diplomacy that I mentioned at the outset and just referred to. But I will say that as long as China is approached to wrestle with notions of nuclear risk that it's concerned about, I think that we can get into early discussions with them. It's been my recent experience working with them in Track 2 settings that they seem very interested in trying to figure out ways to begin a conversation with the United States about nuclear risks. And I think that that is a valuable way to get to the point where we can be talking to them about limitations. Again, they have a much smaller arsenal than ours, but things like nuclear launch, not nuclear launch notifications, but missile launch notifications, developing better communications links with them at the strategic level, hotline arrangements, these types of things. I think they are valuable to begin a conversation about the necessity of controlling nuclear weapons at the negotiating table and not being so untransparent about what they're doing with their modernization. That has to be the first and foremost objective, talking to them about what their intentions are.
And is there a risk to delaying any kind of an agreement with Russia to try and negotiate a trilateral arms control treaty?
Because the numbers are so different, Senator, I do not support trying to do a trilateral negotiation. I believe that these negotiations should be done in parallel. We have 50-plus years of experience now limiting and reducing nuclear weapons with the Russians. We can continue that kind of process with them. At this point, not necessarily to reduce, but to continue to limit and control nuclear weapons. And by the way, I agree that non-strategic nuclear weapons, that's where we get this 45% versus 95% number. We did not constrain non-strategic nuclear weapons in the New START treaty. It was not designed for that purpose. So to fault it for not controlling those weapons is a bit bizarre. But nevertheless, I agreed very much with Mr. Morrison's approach and the entire Trump administration during the first term when they said we need an all-warhead limit in the next negotiation. I think that is definitely the priority we need to proceed on with the Russians. I've already spoken about the Chinese. I think they are willing to talk to us now, but it is about risk reduction and the beginning of more predictability and transparency about their nuclear objectives.
And based on the comments that you've both made so far, Admiral Richard and Mr. Morrison, do you share that view that we can go ahead and negotiate without trying to include both China and Russia in any negotiations?
Senator, no, I would recommend including Russia and China in any future negotiations. There's a point I did want to pick up on, though, in terms of the discussions with China. Again, I've testified to this effect before. One thing that Russia and the United States learned through the Cold War was how you responsibly operate systems of this great destructive potential. China, we don't know if they have learned the same lessons. Ours were learned over time, and they were very difficult. I think that is an excellent starting point for a conversation with China. There are terms like confidence building and transparency that I would certainly endorse. But fundamentally, it comes back to how do you responsibly operate weapon systems with this magnitude of destructive potential? That is to everyone's benefit, including China, and I think it makes an excellent starting point for diplomacy.
Mr. Morrison, do you agree?
Senator, I find myself more in agreement with Admiral Richard. Arms control requires two or more parties to choose to enter into the process, and my concern about extending the New START treaty, for example, whether as part of what was an agreed mechanism or now in expiration, a sort of an executive agreement, is it takes away the leverage we need, the interest that Russia has in continuing to bind our forces, 92% of our forces, and allows them to continue to escape the tougher conversation that they want to avoid of what to do about their non-strategic forces. And I also think it removes pressure from the other party.
Well, thank you all. I have only a few seconds left, but I do want to, I know this is about the New START treaty, but I want to get your reaction to whether you think it's in our interest to negotiate with Iran to try and prevent them from achieving a nuclear weapon. Can you all just answer very briefly whether you think that's in our interest or not?
Yes, I've been glad that Mr. Witkoff seems to be pursuing that goal.
Emma Richard.
Senator, any mechanism that prevents Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon is in our interests.
Mr. Morrison.
Senator, I think it's always worth trying, but I think we also have to realize who the Iranian regime is and whether or not we think they will actually live up to a commitment they make.
Well, that's a challenge with all of our adversaries, I would argue.